everybody. Welcome back to the Anthropology of Religion. Please forgive my garb, which may become increasingly dressed throughout the lecture. I'm a little bit chilly. Today, we are moving on to think about belief. The song that was playing in the background, here's the singer insisting that he believes everything about his lover. And I think this starts to direct our attention away from belief as something that is like fundamental to religion to something that kind of comes and goes with practice, with time, with intention. So the podcast, the lecture for this week, kind of tracked that history, moving from belief as something that definitely unites all religions to thinking more ethnographically about belief. When does it come to matter and how to people? So today what we're going to do is do a tiny bit of review of our definitions to try to really isolate them from each other, try to understand the differences between them and the different power that they have to help us understand religion. And also as a kind of entry point to understand where belief kind of matters in each of these definitions. Then I'm going to run through the slides a lot faster than I have the last 2 weeks, because I'm expecting all of you to have listened to the podcast beforehand. But I will be running through them so that you have the opportunity to ask the questions that you might have or to get some clarification on stuff. And then finally, closer to the end of lecture, we're going to do some more reading, like workshop, clinic-y type of stuff, working more on how to speed read ethnography for comprehension, understanding, clarity. Sound good? Okay, cool. So the first thing let's remember what each of these definitions are and what's going on with them. So can we do like a group brainstorm? I've put little slots in there according to the number of things I think each definition needs to have in it. Does anyone want to fill in, I will do the typing, but anyone want to talk to me about what might fit in any of those boxes up there? Anyone know off the top of their head? Or looking back at the slides or your notes? Whatever can do it. Yeah, going on?
I would say there's the belief in supernatural.
Yeah, let's go. Okay. Technically, he says the belief in spirit, although I guess it depends on your translation. The belief. Yeah, that's not going to work. Hopefully that will get bigger as maybe if I do this. Yeah, there we go. Cool. Excellent, thank you. Anyone else? Durkheim, Goethe, or Austin? Any element of any other definitions? Yeah.
I've got to be that religion was the system of symbol.
Yeah. Cool, and what does that system of symbols do? Yeah?
Establishes moods and motivations.
Yeah, let's go. Is this working? There we go. Okay. How? How does it establish moods and motivations and okay.
Through rituals.
Yes.
Ceremonies.
Yes. Okay. Through rituals and ceremonies, yeah, let's give that. What are those rituals and ceremonies supposed to be doing? Or what are they doing according to yours?
Materializing symbols.
Yes. To what purpose? Or to what end?
To establish moods and motivations. To connect with the divine.
Okay. Yep, and why do we call all of that?
Religion.
Yes. Yeah, Kiara, you want to help her? Melissa?
Isn't it to kind of establish a general order ordered conception of reality.
Yes, exactly. So these rites and rituals that Kiara was mentioning, in which is a sort of pattern of these symbols that Kiara was also mentioning, is to the purpose of creating a sort of general, or making vivid a general social order. Cosmic order of existence. Cool. And what does that feel like for participants in religion, according to Gertz? What do those like rituals, rites, etc.? What does that system have? What quality does it have? Yeah.
The term that was used was factuality, but essentially it being true.
Yeah. So you're actually kind of touching on both. So the order of existence seems particularly true. Sorry, let me say. Really, he says conceptions because he's talking about these symbols. Such that they seem excellent. Thank you. Great. So we've got Tyler up there, belief in spiritual, supernatural beings. Gertz, a system of symbols which works on men to establish moods and motivations by formulating a general order of existence and clothing that order with an aura of factuality that feels uniquely real. Yeah? Cool. Durkheim or Asad? Who wants to start us off? Or end us up. If you feel like you know the last piece of their definition, go for it. Where's Durkheim? Yeah, go on.
God is like a reflection of society.
Yes. God is like a, sorry?
It's like in the like modern thought, or like what they want religion to be, what God is what they want society.
Yes, good. Religion is an expression of society. So society shows in religion what it wants to be true, what it greatly desires. You know what? I'm actually going to add that as a third thing because I had two other elements here. And what does Durkheim say is contained in that expression of society? Two kinds of things or relationships. One of them is
Sacred.
Yes, sacred things, which might include. What do we do with the sacred things?
They embody your belief.
Okay. And then, like, practically, what do we do with them in our religion? What do we have? What activities do we have? What activities do we do with those sacred objects or stuff? Sacred things. Doesn't have to be just you. Anyone help her out? So, yep. I heard someone start to talk. Oh, yeah. Rituals, yes. Okay. Great. Rituals or rites and anyone know? Actually, you know what? The rites come from. This is my own word. I apologize. So rites out of sacred stuff that include beliefs and rituals. And for Durkheim, how are these connected? Sacred objects, beliefs, rituals. Not rituals. Yeah, rituals. Right, etc. Are they all over the place? How do we get to society? What makes them seem like a religion rather than a bunch of magic objects? For Durkheim. Yeah, I hear someone say something. Yeah.
I was just sort of like establishing order.
Good. Okay. Establishing order. And Durkheim might call that a unified system. So it's important to both Durkheim and Goethe that all of these like various sacred things cohere in a unified system. They relate to each other and they have a boundary. Okay. And for Durkheim, this is what distinguishes religion from magic. Because he says magic is kind of like personal, you can do it at any time, but there's no sort of agreed community, basically. I'm giving something away. So what's the middle thing here in Durkheim? So we have a bunch of rites and practices, a bunch of beliefs and practices surrounding sacred stuff. And who does that sacred stuff? Who does that? Who participates in that system? Or what is the kind of worldly effect of this system, according to Durkheim? Yeah? No?
Is it just to establish a social order, or to give meaning to social interaction?
Yes, good. And how does that happen through human sociality, I suppose? Because we might think to give order to something, we can think about, governments give order to stuff, or parents give order to their children.
The rules or understanding of how that order should be established comes from a common place.
Okay.
From the whatever place that they're making power is derived from.
Good. I like how you corrected yourself there, because you started off by saying, okay, rules and stuff come from a divine place, and then you realized Durkheim is trying to put it all back in society, and you said, no, it's what I mean is from the power place. Good, yeah, he probably would agree with that. Yep. Sorry, do you want to add to that?
Is it through like rituals?
It is through rituals, the beliefs and practices, the sacred stuff, they get practiced. Who is doing the rituals? And for whom? Yes, the community. So, and what kind of community is this?
Religious community.
A religious community. And for Durkheim, what else could we call it? Whoops. What goes here?
You have homogeneous community.
A homogeneous community that, yes, for,
In the same.
yes, they all belong to each other, all part of the same system, yes, what? A moral community, there it is, thank you. United in a moral community, which Durkheim would call a church, but, church generically speaking, right? So for Durkheim, the community of a religion, because it's just a reflection of society, has effects, it results in a moral community. It is a system for people to do good and think about good stuff in the world. Yeah? Okay, Asad. I know Asad's stuff is mostly a critique, but where does he kind of land in terms of what we might think a religion is? If you want to start us with his critique, then we might be able to get to his definition. That's not yet.
universal definition of religion.
Sorry?
There can't be like a universal definition.
Good, there can't be a universal definition. What should there be instead? Sorry, what's your name again? Maya, is that Maya? Or Molly?
Maya.
Maya is absolutely right. Asid wants to get rid of a universal definition of religion. What does he want to replace it with? Why would we want to reject the universal definition of religion? Why might we want to do that? Why?
It's like religion is universal. It's like religion is different in different contexts, so you can't really define it.
Yes, exactly. Religion is different in different contexts, says Asid, so you can't define it with different, with one single definition. So, can't decide which one I want to use. Intimately linked to social. Religious symbols are intimately linked to social life. They belong to social life, yeah?
Could you say, wasn't part of his argument that religion changes over time?
Yes.
So it doesn't stay the same.
Yes, yes, exactly. Good. So, religion changes over time because of what, according to Asid? Or what is... Actually, no, that's enough, I think. So, religion is the product of... the product of history and specifically debates. Oops. For Asid, yeah? Okay, and one more part of Asid's argument here. How does religion come to be, does he think, in the world? If it's a product of social context and history, how does he think it actually comes to be like practiced? But how does it actually come to be happening with various people in the world? Yeah.
The religious symbols support the dominant power.
Okay. Yes. Good. That I'm going to put that. I'm going to snuggle that in here with intimately linked to social life. Actually, you know what? I'll just give it its own because I think he would appreciate that. Usually, but not always, support dominant social order. Very acid. And what gives religions their kind of diverse field? Why are Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Shintoism, etc., various kinds of animism, so kind of immediately distinct from each other?
Well, I don't know if this is kind of 100%, but religious beliefs is culturally and historically constituted in a certain location.
Good.
At a certain time.
Good. Yes.
So it would just because as it says, it's kind of shaped by wider society
Mm-hmm.
and the powers within that,
Mm-hmm.
and then the culture of the wider society kind of seeps into religion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so culture of our society seeps into religion how? Yeah?
Like the transformation of arguments and practices over a long period of time.
Good, yeah, we're gonna put that in the part of history, specifically debates place, yeah. How is this happening, like, how can we watch it as anthropologists? What can we see happening?
Because like the practice, like the reality of the religion itself is practiced differently. So it's kind of like you take from how the lived reality is into.
Good, yes. So he definitely wants us to start from lived reality and move towards what we think that particular religion or religious expression is in that place and that time, absolutely. And what does he think those practices do? What does he think their relationship is to the religion itself? Yeah.
There's this one about shaping how things are. The view about how things are and how things could be.
Yes, yes, exactly. So thank you, the two of you. So this last bit has to do with practice. So social disciplines, by which we mean the discipline of like prayer practice or going to mosque or counting beads or whatever, shapes religious experience. And that this social discipline is, as we've already discussed, a product in part of long histories of debates and power dynamics in the moment, okay? This is kind of a wordy way of saying this. Hang on, I'm going to rephrase. Yeah. Practice here meaning disciplines of practice, not necessarily, but possibly kind of everyday stuff that we do. Okay? Cool. Anyone have any questions on this or want to add anything? Excellent. So now what we're going to do is I am going to force you superficially to choose which one of these definitions that you like the best. So does anyone want to start us off by laying a claim on any of these guys? Who knows for sure which definition? I know that you all have you're all going to have your own kind of definition emerging in your minds, but just for the sake of kind of clarifying these four different ones, I am going to make each of you choose one. So does anyone know already which one they're going to pick today? Yeah, Francis? Sorry, Durkheim? All right. Come on down, grab your Durkheim sign, pick a corner, and then go stand in it. I'm going to make everyone stand in the corner. All right, who wants to pick a different one? Who wants to be our vanguard of Tyler, Gertz, or Asad? Whichever one you want. You are first. You get to decide upon which rock you will lay your church. Yeah.
I don't believe this, but I'll take the Tyler one.
All right, go for it. Pick a corner. Okay. Who wants to pick another one? We've got Asad and Gertz left. Who thinks religion is more or less a system of symbols? And who thinks religion is more or less dependent on whatever is happening in the source? Nice. Good corner. All right. Who wants to grab Gertz? Is no one going to buy into our symbolic anthropologist today?
I'll take it.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you very much. All right, the rest of you. Oh, sorry. I need to make this big again so you can all see it. I apologize. Okay, is anyone else feeling drawn? I want you to join your friends in one of these corners. Hold up your signs so we know what you have. Yeah, go for it. Everyone needs to eventually join a corner. If you don't want to, you can stay in the middle, but I am going to pose to Tom here. Tom is undecided. You need to convince him to join your religion, the religion of these four great ancestral figures, okay? Or convince him that this approach is better than these others, for what reason, okay? So 60 seconds, decide collectively the main big reason your way is better. You guys all have to have one reason. Oh, you might want to go powwow together. Are you switching sides? Okay, you've got 15 seconds. Synthesize it. It's one really powerful. All right. Okay. Awesome. Dominating this discussion. What? We're going to start with Austin, then we're going to go to Durkheim, then we're going to go to Gertz, then we're going to go to Tyler, okay? You have to convince Tom. He has like 50% of the power of everyone in this room, somehow concentrated in his being, and you really want him, okay? So, convince him to join. Why should we believe that Austin's definition is the best? Austin Group, go.
Because the idea of trying to define any religion, I think, is sort of like a bit mental. It was sort of if I kind of tried to define, you know, a country. They're so vastly diverse.
Well, don't tell me, tell Tom.
In many, they're so so the idea that you could define any religion in any way, I think, is just not correct. And he seems to be the most critical. And you know, if the numbers just don't say anything, look, we're clearly the largest party. So I think for your own self-preservation, you would be best to join us.
Excellent, thank you very much, Derek. Okay, Durkheim. Then stop. What you got?
I think it's mostly about the fact that religion isn't a unique thing within society. It's just one system among many that's trying to create a social order. But religion's purpose is to create a moral code that sort of affects how people live. But religion isn't unique in any way as a system of practices within society.
Excellent, thank you. All right, Gertzians.
We kind of thought that Gertz's definition offered something that wasn't as limited as Tyler or Durkheim, but wasn't overly broad in the sense that it saw it. So we felt that the idea that you cannot define religion at all, at least to me, I don't think it makes sense, because generally we have an idea that we need to talk about religion. And the other thing is, it's not just based on the context of history or society as to what religion is. We have religions that have been continuously enduring in certain senses for thousands of years. So I think the historical context is not the only thing that decides if there's other factors there. So with that in mind, I think Gertz is the most compelling kind of jumping off point.
Excellent, thank you. And finally, Tellurians.
Well, firstly, I would like to say that Derry was being rude to the minority group. You don't need to be like discriminant here, you know, because you're like, there's so many of you. Maybe they're just conforming to the, you know, the dominant power of society, which is Assad. But you know, Tyler, he has very okay. Yeah. They have a very kind of simple definition of religion, which I think is really kind of, it means that you can kind of use it for a wider range of religions and stuff like that. And you know, like spiritual beings is a very kind of wide definition. Like spiritual being can be a deity, or like a personification of something, like an emotion or a certain value, or like it can even be like a tree or some sort of like natural like material or something like that. So I don't know, I like it. I think you should too.
Amazing, thank you. All right, how are you feeling?
I feel torn and very powerful.
All right.
I think Assad's case, I didn't buy it necessarily because the idea that you can't define a religion. Assad seems to know what a religion is to the extent that he's talking about it. So I'm not necessarily convinced by that. Your argument was also interesting, but again, I think that if you just extrapolate religions into society to the point where it's nothing, again, doesn't really work, doesn't really help us get anywhere. You seem to have got the short straw. You're a little bit disorganised, which is fair enough because that's very sparse and I can't really buy that. So I think I'm buying Geertz.
All right. Congratulations. Well argued. Okay, well, don't go back to your seats just yet because I want you to have another like 2-3 minute powwow with your group. I want you to figure out where belief falls in each of these definitions. Okay? Go on. Thank you. Hold on.
Well, obviously,
All right, people. Okay, we're going to start again. Awesome. Where is it? I really need one of these like songs. Where is belief in Asad's definition? What does he think of belief? Yes, I agree. Different spokespeoples. Jerry, you might have to.
I mean, it doesn't really like explicitly feature. I feel like he's kind of coming from the assumption that symbols show something about belief, but like you don't need to think about that too hard because we can just look at the symbols.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Anyone else? Want to add on that? Cool. Good. We might think also, if we're thinking of Asad as someone who's interested in following religion as it is practiced in real life first, then belief becomes something that we hear about, observe, participate in a particular historical context, right? So belief becomes this thing that has been constructed through long histories of debate that then specific people in specific communities are engaging with today. Yeah? And that might very well be happening through specific symbols. Yeah, excellent. Durkheimians, where does Durkheim think of belief?
That it's linked to society, and that society creates the beliefs that then religion kind of adopts all those beliefs. But we were talking about kind of a critique of Durkheim is that it assumes that everyone within the same religion would have all completely unified beliefs, because that isn't the case. Because even if you are from the same society, grow up in the same place, you have a completely different relationship with your religion, and you can take different things from it and hold things to a higher level of importance than others in your community.
Yeah, so it kind of sounds like someone needs to convert to
Yeah.
Yes, so for Durkheim, belief is something that is produced by society as a kind of grounding point of this moral community or this church that everyone should kind of tie into theoretically. Yeah, excellent. Gertz? Where's belief in Gertz's conglomeration definition? That's what I think about that.
I think that Gertz is like quite inclusive with like belief. It's kind of like you can arguably put like God can be a symbol, like he can be, I don't know how to word it, how do you word it?
It's okay, keep talking it out, you'll get there. God can be a symbol, belief is, yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, no, I can't think.
Build on it.
Like we were saying, a system of symbols, like people believe in symbols, but you have to believe in symbols like in one sense, and like God could symbolize a lot of things, but then also further down he talks about like an aura of factuality, and we're saying like for something to become like a fact, there has to be quite a strong belief like, in it.
Yeah, excellent. So I think you're bringing up two things here. We might see belief in Gertz's definition as falling in these kind of somewhere between these final 2 points here. Things feel so real that we obviously believe in them, right? That's kind of, you might say that. You might also say that belief in Gertz's formula is kind of like the thing that keeps the web of meaning sort of afloat or something, right? So you're kind of picturing Gertz's definition as almost sort of cyclical and self-going. So yeah, good job. Mm-hmm. Tyler? Where's belief?
That was in the definition.
Yeah, let's go.
The belief in the spiritual supernatural beings, like if you believe in those things, then you are ascribed to like a religion.
Excellent. So for Tyler, belief is the fundamental element of religion. Great. Well done, everyone. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn to your seats. Thank you. Sorry? I always do, you know me by now. Okay, so now I'm going to breeze through these slides. I am really just going to kind of reiterate the main points. I'm not going to explain them, so if you need or want an explanation, shoot that hand up, yell out. Maybe don't go into religious ecstasy, but if that's what happens, well, I won't prevent it. Okay. First of all, this slide is a satire on belief and action in which the performer, did anyone watch this already? Yeah, a couple people? Yeah, so the performer is basically critiquing what's known as Pascal's wager, this idea that you should believe in God, because if you don't believe in God and you die and he turns out to not exist, then you die anyway. But if he turns out to exist, then you go to hell. If you do believe in God and you die, he turns out to not exist, you die. And if you do believe in God and he turns out to exist, you go to heaven, right? So if you're like a betting man or a betting person, then you should believe. So he's kind of taking on that philosophical defense of God and having fun with it. And so this kind of, the premise of his little performance here is that, okay, well actually, if that's true, then also we need to hedge our bets in all of the religions. So we need to also believe in all of the gods of every pantheon that have ever existed and make sure we propitiate them properly all the time, right? And obviously that's impossible to do. But a big question that this kind of performance satire brings up is this kind of fundamental connection that we sometimes think of in religion between belief and the action that it is supposed to inevitably engender, right? So, key readings, Lindquist and Coleman, Carlisle and Simon. Once again, all these key readings are the basis for the podcast. They are not actually required of you. Only the two monographs are. So you just, if you want to go back later for the essays, that's why they're here. But belief, basic dictionary definition, can be broken down into two basic parts. A belief in something, like a belief in God, a belief in a person, and a belief that. You believe that, what was Sonia's example, that the moon pulls the tides or something. Yeah. Pouillon argues that these definitions are kind of conjoined and interrelated. So belief in the existence of someone or something, or the acceptance of a fact at the cognitive level, this is what he glosses as belief that. So when you're thinking about belief as a kind of thinking thing, it's a belief that, right? But the second one, belief in, is more kind of emotional, putting trust in something rather than cognitive. And then finally he says you have this element of belief, which is internalization or representation to yourself of something that you believe to be true or that you believe in. And this can take both things, I believe that, I believe in, and you represent them to yourselves through, for example, a creed or a statement of belief. So sometimes, at the example here, sometimes people say to us, I know God exists, I know God is real. I know that my ancestors look out for me. And sometimes we translate that knowledge as belief because of the ways that it sort of asserts a belief in something, a trust, an emotional overtone, and a kind of statement about the world. I believe that the nature of the world is such that ancestors look over me, or look over people. Does that make sense? Questions here? Comments, critiques here? Great. Now, some questions in the anthropology of religion that center around belief. So the first one comes back to our Taylorians, and has to do with whether or not religion's adherence should be premised on some foundational belief. Should we say that all religions require some kind of central belief? Is it possible to see belief as the universal feature of religion? Can we base a comparative anthropology on the concept of belief? But what if some religions do not emphasize acceptance of a foundational creed or belief? Then what do we do with those guys? Huh? What is the relationship between belief and ordering of existence? What we think is happening in the cosmos? Is belief individualized? Do I just think I believe things? Is it I believe something and it doesn't matter what other people believe? Or is it something that a group holds in common? A moral community, a church, etc. And if we think both things can happen, what is the relationship between the two? Generically, in any given society, however we want to approach it. How do we understand the connections between belief and experience? How does everyday experience inform and reinforce or threaten belief? Or does it work the other way around? Are we believing in something and then experiencing reality in that way? Or are we experiencing reality in a way that tells us what we believe? Right? Do we believe in gravity because of the experiences we have that tie us to the earth? Or do we believe in gravity and then our experiences confirm that? That's a kind of banal analogy. Questions on this slide? Yeah, Kiara.
So does this kind of mean like that kind of idea that like something only becomes like you only come to know something if you believe it to be true, whether that be like a scientific fact or some sort of like existential like viewpoint about the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, the thing about gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Like I personally don't understand gravity,
Mm-hmm.
how it works, but like I know that it's like truth or whatever because I believe in it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I actually don't know where I'm going with this all.
Okay, yeah, I think you kind of have three thoughts. One is, which is it, Megan Rose? Is it experience leads us to believe, or is it that belief leads us to experience, right? That's the kind of, and that I think would be an ethnographic question. As an anthropologist, you would want to, go into a community and say, okay, how do they believe anything? First of all, is belief a thing here? Second of all, if so, how is belief changing their experience of the world, the stuff they're doing, the way they're relating to each other? Vice versa, how are their experiences creating belief in certain things, right? So that part is an ethnographic question, and that's really the point of this. Now your second bit was kind of about like, is that an existential thing, or how else did you phrase it?
Like a scientific fact.
Or a scientific fact, right? So, or are those kind of different perspectives to take? And I think, again, I'm just, as a scholar, as an anthropologist, I have no answers about religion, by the way, I should say. But I would take those as kind of perspectives that you might take to get certain answers, but also that your participants, your interlocutors might take. For example, British humanists might think a lot about the scientific method and the nature of reality and the non-reality of the soul, for example. And so you might very well be interested in how a belief that the scientific method produces facts about life changes a belief in or lack of belief in a soul, for example. Does that make sense? Then your final bit was, what if you actually don't really believe in the thing that you believe in because you don't know it at all? Yeah, and I think this is a kind of I'm not going to say core feature, but it's a recurring feature of belief in many places across the world through many times. That's something that Asad was I think, particularly observing, that people don't always believe, and Gertz too, people don't always believe with the same intensity. In fact, rarely do we believe with the same intensity certain things, right? For Gertz, our belief really gets concentrated in a ritual moment. And when we're participating in a religious ritual, our belief is kind of strongest. But when we're bringing our car to the mechanic, or when we're like flossing our teeth or something, our belief is not kind of like the foremost thing that is motivating us. So it might be when we have moments when we're drawn, but it might also be outside religion. So it might be, and I kind of Durkheim or Asad sense, in social moments when our attention is drawn to belief, in moments of moral debate, or in moments of, my teacher just made a reference to gravity, and I actually don't know what gravity is, kind of moment that suddenly we're like, what do I believe? What is belief? Let's think about it. And all of those, for an anthropologist, are extraordinarily interesting questions and phenomena. I don't think I clarified anything so much as I just gave you a framework to think about. Okay. Other questions, comments on this slide? Lovely. Okay. So, back to our definitions. Tyler, we just had it up there, belief in spiritual supernatural beings. So Tyler's definition of culture and of religion both draw on the importance of belief. Because for Tyler, culture is, quote, that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom. Right? So, and then he says, okay, let's take that belief bit of culture and let's talk about what that is, and we're going to call that religion. And it's belief in supernatural beings. So, two things for Tyler. One is that belief is separated from knowledge. And we might think about the implications of that. If we separate things we know off from things that we believe, what does that mean for religion? Yeah? Equally, if we kind of conflate things we believe with things we know, what does that mean for our understanding of religion? Both ways kind of draw certain lines in certain places. And for Tyler, religion arises as a problem-solving exercise. That is, it resolves particular problems or questions in the world. Why did the tsunami happen? Yeah?
But surely if you believe in supernatural beings, then you know supernatural beings. Or know of supernatural, not you know them personally. But I guess maybe, yeah. But just you know about them.
Okay, what do you mean by that? You know about them?
You kind of for example, if you relate it to God, God is a supernatural being, and people know God simultaneously while believing Him, believing in Him, then I just don't understand. I don't know about it.
Yeah. You're saying how could you? Those two things are implicated in each other.
Yeah.
Right? Can anyone think of how we might separate belief and knowledge out? Yeah.
Kind of the idea that you need belief to have knowledge, but knowledge doesn't, the belief by itself doesn't constitute knowledge.
Okay, can you give me an example?
I feel like some degree randomly, but in philosophy and all, I remember doing just by true belief is a definition of knowledge, so adding on elements to having belief by itself that kind of prove it in some kind of empirical way, and therefore that constitutes knowledge, or having certain criteria have to be met to then be considered knowledge.
Right. Okay, so it's kind of a differentiating belief in something from a kind of accrual of observations or knowledge about it. And I think if you have all of that accrual, and if we're talking specifically about, for example, supernatural beings, then you have what Chiara is talking about, which is belief and knowledge being the same thing. But in many religions, many things are considered unknowable, right? Including in Christianity for the Christians that we're talking about in Tanya Lerman's piece. God is supposed to be fundamentally unknowable. but we picture God through our imagination and our experiences of, our imagination of Jesus interacting in our lives. And that's kind of an insight into this great unknowable thing. Does that make sense? Yeah, kind of same for a lot of different things. Yeah. Other questions, comments? Lovely. Okay. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Well, I was just going to say, don't you have to be told, like, you can't have a belief in something you're never told exists?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess you, like,
Yeah.
knowledge is just being told, oh, so like God exists,
Mm-hmm.
and then not everyone who's told that is going to believe.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know how you can believe in something that you haven't been told and been told that isn't it.
Yes. Well, this is why you're kind of a Durkheim's camp, where religion is an expression of the society that you kind of been taught that sort of knowledge. And for pretty much, they're not there anymore, but pretty much all of these definitions, there's an idea that you're socialized into a religion the same way you're socialized into anything. So belief and knowledge kind of develop together. But your main point was, yes.
You mean something that you've never been told is a possibility.
Right. Well, some people have experiences that sort of surprise or shock them, which they kind of believe in, and then
Like visions.
yeah, like encounters,
Yeah.
like sudden gut feelings, and sometimes in those cases, people are immediately able to be like, this was my ancestor speaking to me, or this was, Saint Christopher keeping me from traveling this road that was too dangerous, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Other times, people get that feeling and then like live with that or inhabit this kind of uncertainty for a period of time until they encounter a framework that seems to match onto an experience they've had. Which wouldn't really be the same as belief in, but it would be a belief that I had this experience that later can be translated. Sorry, what's your name again?
No.
No.
Thank you. How could we separate religion from knowledge
Mm-hmm.
and both of them from power?
As anthropologists, we can't, really. But people do. So, how can we separate religion from power? As anthropologists, we can think about the way that people, especially if we're thinking about belief, for many religious people, religion is an experience of believing in something despite the non-presence of Jesus, for example, or despite the absence of the Buddha, right? Buddhism is kind of different. It's not really centered on belief, but it's kind of present there. But so while we still while we're as like people interested in the social, we're still going to be interested in knowledge practices and the way that belief is embedded in society. But we can also understand and imagine and feel ourselves how people might separate knowledge out from belief. Does that make sense? We might not buy it ourselves. We don't have to buy anything that our interlocutors tell us. It's a good exercise to try, because then we're able to speak from the gut, kind of how they sort of picture the world, and it can change us in fun ways. And the power thing? Is more or less the same answer, I would say. No?
I just wanted to go back to what I did before that, just to make sure I understand. So when I read this, the way that I read it is not that when we say belief is separated from knowledge, I don't picture that as meaning that someone can believe in, let's say, the Christian God without ever having any knowledge that the Christian God or the definition of the Christian God, or religion of Christianity, or any of the figures in that. If someone doesn't know about any of that, This is not saying that they could come to a belief in that same God without having that knowledge. What it's saying is that people can have a belief in, like the example of gravity. If I can believe in gravity but not understand how it works, or have no knowledge of how that force operates in the world, simply I believe in it because I encounter it on a daily basis, right? I have some level of experience, of it affecting me. So,
Or you choose to, despite nothing else. Go on, anyway, it doesn't matter. That was just another feature here.
So people were bringing up this question, which is that, how can I believe something that I don't know about? I've never had any knowledge of it. I just want to make sure that's not what you're saying, that you can't do it. Like,
That's not what we're saying.
You're saying that you can have a belief that is not supported by this huge proof or understanding of
Correct.
everything that's going on behind it. Because, for instance, like you brought up, if the Christian God is thought to be unknowable, that's in the sense of infinite in power and wisdom and all this stuff, and us, who are finite beings, could never fully grasp all of it. So in a sense, we can never know everything, but still there's still the compulsion to believe in that God based on whatever experience we have.
Correct. Yes. That's exactly it. What this is actually saying, though, is that Tyler is separating the domains of belief and knowledge in a way that might be confusing, complicated, or not map onto real people's lives. Because, for example, people say, I know God. I know God personally. They don't say, they do also say, I believe in God, but those are kind of qualitatively different statements that our interlocutors might say, right? But they imply something of the same thing. So, for Tyler, these are different categories: knowledge, belief, art, morals, law, custom.
Within Tyler's definition.
Within Tyler's definition of culture.
Yeah, this is vernacular for Tyler that is important for us to distinguish between these unique different things.
Exactly. So we might not want to be, so this belief separated from knowledge implications is just a note for all of us to say, one, Tyler is separating those two. Two, what are the implications of that? Exactly. Good. More? Yeah, Karen.
So would you say it is in this kind of definition that there's any kind of distinction between belief and knowledge that is based on affect, belief that there's a higher affective value than belief, and you can just know something without having some sort of affective connection to it.
Okay. Does this imply a difference between, is belief a kind of more affective thing and knowledge a kind of more concrete thing, sort of what you're asking in this definition?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say no. Maybe, but no for Tyler. I don't think he really cares generically about the quality of each of these things, more as categories of human experience or social experience, really. Yeah. So you might down the road, now that we have a lot of affect theory to work with, we might say, well, we can map this onto Tyler's definition of belief, but he himself is not really. Other? You might be thinking of Pouillon, because he's kind of saying the belief in has a more emotional, affective overtone than the belief that, which has a more intellectual kind of thing. So that's more his sort of. Okay, Durkheim. So like Tyler, Durkheim was interested in the concept and the ideational aspects of religion and defined beliefs as coherent collections, things that make sense, that work together with other symbols. But he contrasted beliefs were states of opinion for him, because remember, he's like, it's all the social, there's no divine, religion is a human thing. So he contrasts beliefs with rites, modes of action. So states of opinion are different from modes of action. We separate them out. And you have to pay attention to both if you're thinking about religion, and to the connections between the two. But they are different for Durkheim. So the kinds of social things people do in relation to their beliefs is important, but his focus is more on the collective, not on the individual relationships between belief and action. So he's not too bothered about what someone personally accepts as true, and then those personal struggles to enact. So Durkheim's definition of religion would not fit well in this ethnography, for example, because Luhrmann is very interested in how individuals act on believe because of their action, etc. Yeah? So but there's another kind of complicated implication here is what does it mean to separate modes of action from, what does he call it? States of opinion. Okay? And Assad wouldn't really like that either because Assad sees the practice thing as involving both. Questions, comments on Durkheim? Cool. Gertz. Belief cannot be seen as being the same at all times and all places. It varies, becoming stronger and more intense at times, like we said, ritual, weaker at other times, context dependent. So for Gertz, ritual plays an important role in the formation and sustenance of belief. But he does insist on belief preceding ritual, and that involves a prior acceptance of authority, which transforms experience of ritual. I see a hand up here? No? Okay. Assad's critique, in part, rests on the way in which authority, so for Gertz, he's like, okay, belief, it ebbs and it flows, but you have to have belief before you have the right, otherwise the ritual doesn't work for Gertz. And that, for Gertz, that belief comes from accepted authority, someone telling you, this is what is true, this is what religion is. And Assad, his critique kind of rests in part on this sort of formula of authority that Gertz has, because he says actually people don't just accept what they're told, and yet still believe. They can have complicated relationships with belief that may in fact intensify during ritual, but not uniformly. Sometimes you might have a really intense prayer experience, and another time nothing happens, right? This is very common among evangelical Christians. Sometimes you might give offerings and feel like you have, done your duty, and other times you might feel like I just put some stuff down, right? Questions, issues, comments? Okay, so after all of our definitions, Needham comes along and he argued against the term belief. He said we shouldn't use that as anthropologists because it's hazy and we don't really have access to it actually. So he's kind of relying on this sense of belief as like a personal thing that people have. And if we are going to use it, we should really clearly define how, why, and to what end. Yeah? Make sense? Questions, comments? Now, some problems with using the notion of belief. One, when someone says, I believe, what does that actually mean? Is that just a statement of their, of what they should say? Is that a true reflection of their interior experience, right? Is that a sort of a performative leap to try and believe? Is the person themselves trying to tell themselves, give themselves a representation of what is true? Equally, when anthropologists say, the Balinese believe or the Hawaiians believe, how do we know that what people say corresponds to an inner conviction? And also, how do we know that everyone in that community believes the same thing? Why do we assume that? And what are the implications if we take that as the basis for understanding an entire religion or an entire community of people? And finally, the concept of belief assumes that the world is already given. So the kind of cosmological order of things is there, and then we believe in a Hindu pantheon, for example. Because it exists or it doesn't, and so we can lean into it. But one of the problems with belief, especially if we take Assad's critique, is that things are always changing, and that might go for the cosmos and the world as well as for our social stuff. It might not, but this should be an ethnographic question as anthropologists, and not an assumed kind of state of the world. goes this critique. Yeah? Questions, comments? Lovely. Another problem with belief is that it's central to Christianity. So it's another way in which Christianity serves as a kind of model off of which we make these definitions of what a religion is. For Christians, belief is incredibly central in a way that it might not be for other religions. So Christians, for example, have a creed, a spoken statement of belief that is spoken in all major rituals, basically, especially for the kind of high churches. So here's the Anglican creed. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe in the Holy Spirit. And you iterate that, you say this out loud, reaffirming what your belief is. So this is central to Christian religion. And if we take this as a kind of model of what religion is, generically, that really kind of colors how we're able to see other forms of religions that don't have a creed. Hinduism, for example. Another religion that has a creed. There's no God but Allah, and Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. So the community of believers accepts this, or is supposed to accept this, or variably accepts this, as the case may be with belief. With this creed, with beliefs, the idea is that you act upon the belief. So you act upon this central core tenet. I should also say that one of the features of Christianity and Islam is that these beliefs, the creed that we just saw, this one that we're seeing now, are both kind of central beliefs as well. They're not just things that you believe kind of incidentally. They're core to the religion itself. And it would be like a big, it would be, and occasionally is, an actual debate issue if someone within the community says, actually I don't believe in Jesus, or actually I don't believe in God, or something like that, right? That becomes a really big problem for the community and for that person. Now, however, when there's a central proposition like these creeds, right, that adherents must accept, how they do so when is all over the place. People don't agree on what these creeds should mean for their practice. They don't agree, they don't necessarily feel the same things. Life is messy and difficult, and people, get by as they can. And also a lot of religions just don't have a creed. So you could kind of squirrel belief in a little bit, okay, we believe that the pantheon of gods exists, but exactly which gods that means can vary from Hindu place to Hindu place, and which gods are more important, or goddesses might vary, etc. So it's not like the core, in the way that we might think of it in Christianity and Islam, is not the same in Hinduism, for example. Questions, comments so far? So, given this, Coleman and Lindquist suggest that belief as trust or as conviction about the rightness of one's actions and adherence to one's affiliations and identifications is seen more or less around the world. So they don't want to need them. They don't want to just get rid of the belief thing, because they say actually we do see belief in a lot of places, maybe not as a creed, but as a kind of moral orientation. It is, I believe it is right to do this, or as I identify with this group. I adhere to this belief. So I believe in this religion or that. And they say that we might be better off focusing on that rather than on some clearly formulated and stated belief. So rather than kind of defining what belief is, or really being like, all right, what do you guys believe? What's at the heart of your religion? Instead, we should look at the places where people are stating their convictions about the world and stating their belonging to particular religious communities, moral communities. Also, the other thing about belief is that while there are some cases of kind of conversion stories or like sudden belief, I suddenly knew that Islam was right. More people kind of gradually come to their religion through a kind of process of knowledge or experience or knowing, whether or not we want to call it knowledge. So such a drift towards accepting something as true or worthy might not really be articulated as like, I believe this for sure right now, but rather it kind of can be seen through small actions over time. That if you're, apart from someone for a long time, you come back and suddenly they have a new religion, but it might actually have been a long train of practice. Yeah. Questions, comments, concerns? So some people might articulate their experience as, I believe this. And we know that many people do. But more people, also some people, might say, this helps me. This helps me understand the world, understand myself. This helps me get by. This is giving me a sense that things are right or good or valuable or desirable or beautiful or wondrous or whatever. Okay? Questions? Coleman and linguists end their article by arguing that we may not be able to get rid of the concept because we see it all over the place, but rather that we shouldn't take its presence for granted, and actually we should think against it. And what they mean, they don't mean like we should assume it's not there or we should like fight it when we find it. What they mean is that when it appears, we should treat it as somewhat surprising or interesting or unusual. We should not necessarily expect to find it. But when we do find it, we should investigate carefully, granularly, how it came to be there, what actually does it mean for these people, why is it there, etc. in a particular context. So we're increasingly getting away from like kind of big, grand theories and increasingly asking ourselves to go into particular places and understand from the inside out, so to speak. Yeah? Questions? This should sound a bit more familiar. Yeah, go ahead.
This is kind of particular context I'll connect to Assad's things about like historical development, like
yes. Yes, exactly. So Assad was very tied to this particular context and has influenced Coleman and linguists for sure, and pretty much, these days none of us can get by without reading these big four guys, basically, if you're interested in religion. So while not everyone follows his roots, his thinking has influenced pretty much every culture.
Is Assad Marxist?
Is Assad Marxist? Great question. I would say no, but you can see some strands of it in some of his thinking. Yes, yeah, you're welcome. And I think for Coleman and linguists, they would differ from Assad in not necessarily caring so much about a long tradition of debate as kind of like the fundamental context or something. And they would be more kind of interested ethnographically in what is literally happening right now. That's me speaking based on their other work, basically. Other questions? Carlyle and Simon, the other reading, come at belief in a different way. Some has marked up their paper. Their basic point is that people struggle with belief. Recognizing what is so problematic about belief for them allows us to accept that belief is going to be a theoretically problematic concept for us. So the point here is that invoking belief, that doesn't prove anything. It doesn't solve anything, either intellectually for us or like personally for the people that we work with. Rather, if we take people seriously when they're struggling with belief, then this should point us towards an understanding of belief ourselves as we write about it as something that's contested, that people really work hard to sustain, and that sometimes they struggle with. Yeah? So this is kind of a little bit like letting the messiness of real life inform our theories as anthropologists. a fun thing for all of us to do. So they define belief as subjective commitments to particular truths as true in some meaningful and committed way, not just incidentally. That is, you don't believe something that's just objectively true, but it's true for you in the way that you engage with the world. So it's not just true like the way that, I don't know, it might be true that there are Catholic nuns in Indonesia, but it's true for you because it matters, because you are also a Catholic nun, maybe not in Indonesia, right? Questions? One implication of all of these approaches to belief is that they bring us back to selves, for the most part, Durkheim aside. They give a particular picture of what a human person is and what a self is, especially an interiorized self. So they bring up questions like, what can I do or be? What does it mean for me to be a good Christian, Muslim, Hindu, etc.? How can I make myself worthy of God's love or anyone's love? And this believing self is not ready-made, but a product of culture and history. And if you think about this kind of point, then you can take specific examples from When God Talks Back or the other books that you'll read and see how that's happening. How people are really working hard to believe, and that's creating specific kinds of religious selves. Yeah? Questions? Cool. So finally, they urge anthropologists to examine how particular social contexts motivate particular ways of working through the relationships between self and truth, and how these relationships manifest themselves in the lives of subjects. This is the key takeaway from these two readings, which is back to the particular again. What does it mean for this person or these people to believe? And how does that matter to the action they're taking in the world? Or not? And what is the relationship between the action that they're taking in the world? So, for example, Lerman talks about the difference between a general knowledge or a general belief in God as loving and the really hard work it takes for people to believe that they are loved by God personally. So it's bringing it back to the self. Questions? Cool. So finally, to conclude, belief as affirming the truth of something that is not necessarily externally verifiable. This is kind of like a good working definition, but should always be adjusted. It's central to some religions, right? But such an affirmation is not an end in itself. It just sets off a whole train of other questions, like how do I understand or shape myself in relation to this truth that I believe? How do I act according to this belief? What is good or right or wrong? How shouldn't I act? How shouldn't I behave? What should I do when someone who's supposed to be a believer does something they shouldn't? What should the community do to shore up belief or whatever? Now, for others, the subjective commitment to truth may be looser and less all-consuming. It might not matter so much for some people or some religious communities, right? So belief might not be the central problematic, either for the religious person or for the anthropologist, in which case I would suggest, following these other people we just talked about, Coleman, Lindquist, Needham, etc., that you just kick belief to the curb momentarily for the people that you're working with. If they don't think belief is important, there's no reason necessarily for you to. Yeah? Questions, comments, contradictions? Cool. Okay. We're not going to take a break, but if you want to stand up and stretch before we do our speed reading, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you to speed read. I'm going to give you 15 minutes, and in that time, I want you to read an entire chapter of When God Speaks Back. I'm serious, okay? I don't care if you've already finished it, reread a chapter. This is not about whether or not you've ticked the box. This is about actual understanding, okay? I want you to be able to get from the first page of that chapter to the last page of that chapter within these 15 minutes. And this is how I suggest you do it. You read only the first line of every paragraph, and you skip everything else. This can be really hard if you're not used to it, but really force yourself to do that. Then, at the end of that time, I'm going to ask you to talk to the person next to you really briefly, probably not 5 minutes, probably like 30 seconds, and tell them what that chapter is about and what the point of it is in this whole ethnography. So what I'm asking here is that you read just the first sentence of an entire chapter with this sense of looking for what the point is, what it's about, what the argument is. Okay? Questions? Great. I'm not going to give you 15 minutes actually because we don't have that much time. I'm going to give you 10 minutes and we'll see how far you can get. I'm going to ask for absolute silence, please. Okay? All right. Ready, set, go. 30 seconds, turn to the person next to you, say, in chapter whatever, Lerman argues that blank. Okay? Tell them what the main point of the chapter is. Yes.
There's no like supporting evidence essentially.
Yes.
Here's kind of what's happening, and there's some gaps in understanding.
Yeah, excellent. Then that's kind of the key thing. So when you read like this, which I highly suggest you do, not only if you're running short on time, but also when you want to understand the core argument, read just the first sentence of anything. It often works for pretty much anything. Lerman is particularly good. She puts her main point right in that first sentence, for the most part. And this kind of lets you see the pattern, lets you see the logic of her argument without getting lost in the trees, for example. Now, if you don't understand or you don't buy into one of the arguments that she's making, then you can return to a certain paragraph and read through the details, right? Or you feel like there's a gap, you're like, she just jumped, that doesn't, I don't know. Then you can read that whole paragraph and say, oh, okay, it's because of this one story that she's telling, right? Good? So I highly recommend this strategy of reading, not only as a way to get through stuff fast, but also definitely for that too, but mainly as a way to really get the argument solidified in your head, so you know exactly what she's trying to do, or what any author is trying to do. Yeah? Cool. All right, give it a go going forward. We'll try more stuff next week. That's the end of everything today. Anyone got any questions, issues, concerns for me? All right, and Tom will see you tomorrow, and I will see you all next week. I love you. Can you have photos? Oh, yeah. These are basically just copied from the PowerPoint. They're not in this PowerPoint. They're in week 1 and week 2. I think someone else has the other 2. I don't know where they went. You have Asad? Okay. Kiara might have Tyler. Kiara, yeah. Do you have a second to get coffee after this? Nice. I don't know if he actually already took pictures or not. Sorry?
Maybe slide where you broke it down.
Yes, I think. Hi.
How are you? Good, how are you? Thank you. I just wanted to ask you some things about my application for my Florida.
Yeah.
So I have to put out full courses that I want. I just wanted to double check what I should put down. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, so the rules are, well, the rules are you have to take at least 2/3 of your credit over the entire time you have to.
Okay.
Now, in America, most universities, you take 4 modules.
Yeah, that's what I was
4 courses, right? 4 courses each semester. So 3 of your 4 each semester have to be biology, and the other 2, whatever you want to take biology, go for it. You can also take 4 anthropology the first semester, 2 the second semester. And actually what you want. So you have the section where it's like the modules I want to take, and then another section which is alternatives. I would put the ones you actually want to take, and then put us in the first section, and then just put a bunch of pretty much any other anthropology course you can find that you even vaguely inclined to take in the alternatives.
Okay, and when I'm finding the courses to put, do I need to find specific, like, more I'm going to pick ones from the wrong, or is it literally just, do you,
around what
like, do I just literally search up University of Florida anthropology courses, like, do I need to look for specific credits and stuff like that?
Yes, you do. So you have to find their course catalog, and then find out what like the course code is, the credit weight, and you have to fill in that chart.
Yeah, but is there like specific ones for like my year or anything like that?
Yes, exactly. Usually in the United States, I'm guessing in the University of Florida, first year courses start with 1, so it'll be like anthropology 101, 102, 104.
Okay.
Second year, 200 something. You want to be looking at 300 or above. 300 or 400. I will sometimes sign off on 200 levels if there are things you would have archaeology, biological anthropology. You're going to be out of your even a 100 level I might sign off. But generally, for cultural social anthropology, you want to look at those 200.
So when I find them and pick them out, would I be able to send them to you to double check them?
So once you find them and fill that out, come have a 15-10-minute meeting with me, and we'll go over them in person, and I'll be able to say yes.
Great.
And if you have any other friends who are doing this, tell them they have to do that too.
I have to come and check.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad. Yes. You guys are supposed to get that intel somehow. So I'm kind of waiting for each of you to kind of come to me. But I don't know. So at some point, I'm going to have to send out an email being like, listen, all of you, I'm not going to prove something if I haven't talked to you in person. I'll talk to you, but let's in person and with the actual course. The reason for all of the hubbub is because students often get these things signed off of or don't get them signed off, and then take totally different classes, and then they come back and it gets processed through study abroad, and they just take what they were approved of and fail across the board. You don't want that to happen. It's not really a big deal. It's no impact on your marks, but you also just don't want to spend a year abroad and not have credit.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, pick things that are valid and take the things that you pick.
Yeah.
But we can talk more about that.
Okay, cool. Great. Okay, awesome.
Good luck. Dig up all of that stuff. And
Thank you.
Thank you for the drawing. Oh, she's left. This is on my bulletin board. So, yeah, did you see the... Bye-bye! Our new pantheon of...
Tree religion.
I do want to save. Yes, exactly, the true religion. I need to sort out how this system works because it keeps telling me I have no more disk space. Like, how do I think I need to clean everything off, but I get very uncomfortable with deleting stuff.
I've been ignoring that for like 4 years.
Have you? I can't even save PowerPoints on my desktop anymore. Yeah, that's my flash drive. So, go. There we go. So the wedding in Thailand, was it a friend in Thailand or was it
It's a
Thai friend? Amazing.
I met him.
Okay.
He plays badminton, and so do I.
Uh-huh.
So he's like, we were saying last time, he's like top one. Well, so his wedding was just awesome. He hired out like 2 floors of the Marriott 5-star Marriott in Phuket, and just had this whole thing. He spent about 350 grand. And the next day, as you do.
What do you mean the next day? Okay, come on. Sorry.
As you do with your friends.
Right.
The next day he just hired out like a yacht and took us around some of the islands. Of course. We stopped and did snorkeling and
Amazing.
unlimited booze. It was just
Amazing. That sounds fantastic.
so good. Yeah, and really lovely people, kind people. And like,
Oh,
so
yeah.
hospitable. The
Yeah.
food's so good, so cheap.
Yes.
Do you like his wife or husband?
She's really nice, yeah. I think similar sort of social strata to him. But she seems really, really genuine, really friendly. Like, me and my friend made